So what they want to do is from the street to the north end of this, which is absolutely, so it's level.
Yeah.
So you're not getting all the water from the road.
Amazing.
And then on the sides to stabilize the bank, what they do is so this is the street. This is that's their property. Here, the ocean. So what they're asking for is a slight variance, and it's at the 2 foot corners, so they can stabilize down. And what they do is they create a series of just open boxes. And there's no wall before. Oh, on the foundation, they're here. Stairs, so it's easier to get back here. So it's done. And then the rest are just planters. Michelle's not going until later anyways. Like it's not like it's gonna go on. It's beautiful. It's gonna do is help stabilize the property on the side of it. Yeah, it's a bit awkward to neutral.
I'm calling this meeting, this committee of the whole meeting of council to order of Town of Gibsons Council of February 3rd, 2026 at 1:01 p.m. And we're honored to be gathered on the traditional territory of the Skokomish Nation. First, we need to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor DeAndrade, seconded by Councillor Kroll. All those in favor? Approve the agenda, and it looks like we have 4 items today, starting with a couple of reports. And the first one's led by the Director of Finance on the 2026 Utilities Asset Management and Long-Term Financial Planning presentation, which I'll leave it to you to introduce the presenters who I think are joining us online.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To begin this section of the meeting, there is a report that follows connected to it. But to begin, we have 2 consultants from Waterworth. They build financial and asset management planning models for our utilities, the water utility, the sewer utility, and the drainage utility. And they're going to present the models as we have them now for the 2026 budget and aspects of it that they've felt council and the public might be interested in. And they'll be happy to take any questions you have. And once we wrap the presentations and questions up, we'll proceed to the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Waterworth, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Calvin Coles. I'm the Principal Client Success Strategist here with Waterworth, and I've got Mateus from my team here with me as well. We're going to be walking through just some visualizations of essentially some analysis that's been done on your assets. So basically all of your infrastructure assets that are owned by each utility that are currently in the ground right now. And we're going to go through water, then wastewater, then drainage, and just sort of outline, some basics about the network, and a little bit of a long-term asset replacement schedule, as well as what we determined to be the annual cost of sustainable ownership, meaning the annual dollar value that you should be aiming to reinvest in your system on an annual basis to keep up with long-term sustainability over time. So, Matthias, I'm going to get you to walk through it here.
Absolutely, yeah. If everyone can see my screen, please let us know. I think it's going through. Can you see it okay, Calvin? Yep.
Yep.
Alrighty. So yeah, thanks for making the time,
Yeah,
everybody.
I'm sorry, we don't have anything yet at our end.
Oh, you don't.
Oh,
You can see a screen, yeah.
Try to do it again. Let me know if it works now.
Okay, sorry, I see you were going to open them, thanks.
Okay. No worries there. Yeah, so thanks for the time and the opportunity. Like Calvin just mentioned, I think we want to center the discussion and the presentation mainly into the findings related to the asset replacement schedule that we have inside of our tool. A lot of good work was done by Daniel, William, and all the other staff when it comes to getting the numbers to us, the data to us, and really clarifying all little points that we had. So some of you might be familiar with our tool. I'm now diving inside of the water service area. Like William mentioned, we have water, wastewater, and storm inside of our tool, but mainly, let's get started with water here. So we have a bunch of models that we can get into those in detail, but you might notice over time when looking at the proposed and presented budgets that a north component of all the figures, the projected figures, is the annual investment towards capital. And mainly, I think the main thing we can do is show you where the figure is coming from. So basically, we onboarded all the asset lists for the water system, the wastewater system, and also the stormwater system inside of Waterworth. And the tool helps us calculate some figures like Calvin just mentioned, and even do some analysis in terms of backlog, future projects, or just across the board high level figure in terms of how much we're expecting you to be spending in pipes overdue for replacement or infrastructure overdue for replacement. So the first view that you land at, and I should even show you before, the granularity of the information that we have from the city. So as you can see, there's a very extensive Excel spreadsheet containing about 5,000 lines in terms of linear assets, so pipes for water, non-linear. And for the linear part, yeah, we also have a lot of information here. So basically, we onboard your asset registry with length, estimated service life, estimated replacement values, and then our tool helps us create a couple of curves and expectancies when it comes to future cost there. So you see, after onboarding your asset list, we can see your total average annual expenditure from all the assets onboarded. But really, I think it's easier to see the total system value. So basically, after onboarding the entirety of your asset list, the tool gives us kind of a pie chart in here, kind of showing the type of asset that you have in percentage-wise. So obviously, a big chunk of it for the water system is pipes, and then you can see the following for pumping, structures, vulvas, meter, hydrants, and so on. We were sitting at $83 million being our system value in terms of assets for water, and then the tool helps us calculate just some sort of a scheduled replacement cost based on today's assumptions, which I'm going to walk you through, and inflation, escalation rate. So you can argue that in 100 years, if you want to timely replace all your assets overdue for replacement, we'd be looking at a figure like this, so 129 million. From the the network in terms of pipes, which again is probably the most significant part of your asset list for water, we can see a predominance of AC pipes on the 6Es, and then you can see a breakdown per pipe per decade. The majority of the PVC ones obviously are newer, so we can see the darker blue being more prominent in the 90s and the beginning of the decade now. So basically, to encompass the whole thing and summarize it for you, what happens here is, with the help of Daniel and William, we keyed in estimated service lives per material pipe of pipes. So basically, we have some built-in estimates, and then with the help of Daniel again, we keyed in some other factors. So for example, we're feeding our system all the information that we have for your AC pipes. We're giving Waterworth the information that it should be lasting 60 years. It doesn't necessarily mean that all AC pipe will be breaking in 60 years, but the majority or a significant part of them will, and hence why the tool will calculate you needing to replace those AC pipes over 60 years, give it or take, because the way this is fed is with a variable curve. So it's not really directly 60 years, but over that span of time. The same applies to all the other pipe categories. So if I look at DI pipes, we're keying 90 years. Galvanized iron, we're saying 50, 75 for HDPE, PVC, and so on. Also, with the help of Daniel, checking the market and what is typically being spent, we're also feeding a cost per foot for replacement. So once we're determining your annual cost of sustainable ownership, like Calvin mentioned, all those values provided by the city are the ones that are being applied for replacement. So for example, we have a set per meter, and then we have an estimate of how much per foot or actually per meter you should be spending to replace those pipes. All that gets tied in together in this little asset replacement schedule, which I think is the most relevant information that you might see here today for water, sewer, and storm, which is just a curve, or really a set of curves and periods showing how much we're expecting you to spend in replacement, given all the information that we're feeding the model. So again, estimated service lives, asset categories, cost of replacing per meter. So after onboarding all of this, we came to the conclusion that from a water perspective only, we're probably sitting at a $5.5 million in terms of backlog. By backlog, we mean every infrastructure overdue for replacement based on the installation date. It doesn't necessarily mean it's breaking. It should be close to the estimated service life. But again, so that's mainly our definition for backlog in here. So for water, we're sitting at $4.5 million. The tool spits out a nice little curve in terms of when we see a more prominent decade in terms of replacement. So for example, if I'm looking at pipes only, it seems like we have a significant amount of pipes that we do for replacement. The curve eases out for a while, and then say end of the century really is where this comes back online again, and we should be looking at replacement. So obviously, blindly looking at this and planning every single dollar per the curve doesn't make the most sense, I would say. But I think we really rely on what the model spits out as the annual cost of sustainable ownership, which is an average in 100 years of how much you should be spending every year to keep this replacement timely. Those figures can change. We can run, significant or further condition analysis actually to make sure this is correct. But I think from what we have, I may say that over the type of communities that we work with, this is the most accurate figure you can use for planning purposes. And in our case, we're sitting at 1.29, or really 1.3 million per year for the water system. So to summarize everything I'm saying, after all the analysis and all the information keyed in for water, you might see in your budgets that the capital reinvestment target for the water system, based on the assets, it's 1.3 million. I want to stop for a second and see if anyone has any questions, or does it all make sense so far?
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted a confirmation that this is all replacement, not expansion, correct?
Yes. This is only talking about replacement of current assets. You're right.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving over the sewer or wastewater, I don't need to necessarily walk you through the entire functionality again, because I think you already know how this works, but it's mainly the same thing. So we fed the model the same type of information, individualized for sewer only. And the findings were, if I go to, again, the total system value, again, it was pretty similar. We're looking at 82 million, give it or take. When it comes to the curve, we didn't see as much as a big backlog when it comes to sewer pipes if compared to other. Again, some estimated service lives were keyed in, so we can gladly send you those over if you want to double check each one of them. But again, we keyed in cost per meter in terms of replacement, future replacement, estimated service life. And for the sewer side, we're sitting at $2.5 million in terms of backlog, or really infrastructure overdue for replacement based on your estimated service life, and an annual cost of sustainable ownership of 1.47 million, or if you want to, round it up, 1.5 million. For the drainage model.
Important. Can you go back to that wastewater for a second? I just think it's important to do a quick comparison between water and wastewater. So as you'll remember, just the pipes when looking at water, it wasn't really until about 2060, 2070 that you're really starting to see this mountain grow, which is going to be essentially the pipes that you need to replace, that our kids and grandkids are going to need to be replacing. And so it illustrates the need to, first of all, in this model, address your backlog. If you've got $4 million worth of pipes that are in the ground that are more liability than asset at this point, having a plan to address that, do some condition assessment, but also address it and get ahead of things prior to this large mountain that's going to be coming in the decades to come. Whereas if you switch to wastewater, you'll see that the mountain is a lot closer. In fact, that there's multiple mountains, but there is one that's coming in about less than 10 years from now, where you're anticipating you're going to be needing to spend around $3 million a year just on pipe replacement. So, I just wanted to show the difference between those two there.
Yep. Well, that's a good point. And again, whatever is accounted for in terms of backlog, obviously, if it's not addressed, the tendency is just to move that column into the future years. So that's also something to take into account. So obviously, say if none of this said backlog is addressed until 2030, the reality of this bar is really 3.1 mil plus, 2 mil from today's dollars. Just want to make that distinction there. Thanks, Calvin. So for sewer, I think we went through the entirety of the asset list. Predominance of in the next 2 decades, a lot of pipes getting overdue for replacement, even closer than water, like Calvin just mentioned. And that's mainly the most predominant thing for sewer. We see a couple of spikes in the pretty much 50 years from now as well for structures and equipment. But again, we're sitting at, if we want to round this up and really look at a figure to function as a north for our financial planning, which I think it's what William is doing in his plan, is really $1.5 million. I think that's the average we're taking there. On the drainage system, again, there is a pronounced backlog. We're seeing north of $2 million, and we're sitting at $410,000, $410,000 per year in terms of a figure for sustainable ownership. And I think in your plans, William is just rounding to $400,000. So that's mainly when it comes to assets. All the information that we really wanted to convey today was how this is being extracted, how this is being manipulated, and what's the finding from the models. Again, this is an ongoing process, so every year, every new assessment, we come back at this and change those figures, but this is the best information we can relate to you, given the numbers that we have today. And I want to stop for a second. Does anyone has any questions? Does it all make sense so far?
No questions here.
Okay. So we can open for questions furthermore for other parts of the tool. We obviously want to get engaged with the rate design as well at some point in time and really show you some other findings when it comes to customer rates. We're not quite there yet, but if mainly William and Daniel and staff, that's the majority of the scope of everything we wanted to show today. So unless there's anything else, I think we can pass it back to you.
I see a question here now. Councillor DeAndrade.
Please.
It's a question for our director. Based on the recommendation that the water utility target annual capital expenditure be 1.3 million, the sewer 1.5, and the drainage so far will be 400, how much, just looking at this, is anticipated that our taxes are, how this translates into tax increases, the property tax increase?
Okay. Yes, through the mayor, the following report, because the answer is simple when you see it, but it's a bit difficult to explain without the background. When we go into the second report, I will connect that for you so you can see exactly what that means in terms of increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. And, I think this is absolutely fabulous that we've embarked on this road. We were, some of us were at the budget presentation that you did at the regional district last week. And the overview with this project in mind becomes crystal clear, especially with this little table you've provided and the fact that it's available for the town to see on our website. You know, as was mentioned by Waterworth, you know, this is stuff that impacts hugely on future generations. And for far too long, you know, taxes have been kept low. There hasn't been the investment in things people don't see, the pipes in the ground. And I totally applaud that, you know, that we're getting a grasp on it, because, you know, when you look at projected costs, well, anything today, what it costs, being able to have that nest egg for future generations and the security of our own community, when you look at other cities much larger than us and what they're currently faced with in light of the failure of major infrastructure. So it's a wonderful report. The presentation to date has been great. And I just want to applaud the road we're on, and thank you for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kroll, for making those statements. Are there, Councillor DeAndrade?
Actually, just because Councillor Crowe made this statement and I was present at the SCRD, it was quite interesting, to say the least, to see where we are, you know, and how advanced we are in the asset management, right? I know the SRD, I talked to Tina, she said that she's doing independently for each, because the SRD is different, right? They do per service, but it was great to see the town really with a simple, how to say, table, thank you, a simple table, and so much information, but so easy to digest, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we can see from this presentation too how it's backed up by a lot more really intensive and expert data from both consultants and other members of staff here who are in the room with us today, who are doing a lot of hard work on this project. I know. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. Just as a bit of a follow-up to what I was saying, like, one of the significant things that really, when you start looking into this, is we are still somewhat behind the 8 ball as far as getting to a position where we're dealing with these. So, you know, within the various utilities that we currently have, the proactive increases in those utilities over the past few years, even going back to the previous council, you know, this sort of foresight, I think, is really important. And, you know, we also have to applaud the community for embracing it, because nobody really likes tax increases. But the reality of suddenly being hit with a 30 or 40% tax increase to deal with a major infrastructure failure, if we weren't able to borrow, it is a huge thing. So, you know, as much as I applaud staff, the community also has to be applauded for embracing this initiative.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Kroll. Yeah, and it has been, it's certainly been work that's evolved here at the town over a decade or more. I think more, in working with some Waterworth and other iterations of over the past of helpful consultants. Yeah. So yeah, and now we're definitely at a place where when we presented the slide at SCRD the other day, I did hear from other elected officials afterwards with really complimenting how well presented it was too, and that just the format of the presentation. It was, I think it's really helpful to achieve what I was saying at that meeting too this way, and trying to standardize and get some expectations coast-wide on some of the asset management we're doing, which is really, it's really come to the forefront as the big issue for local governments all across the country right now. So having some really kind of state of the art and work like this that others can also model after is really, really useful. You've got back on a soapbox.
No, this is actually a question, sir.
Yeah, great.
Through you, Mayor White. Looking at the vast amount of information, like just reading the report prior to seeing what Waterworth showed on one of their spreadsheets, it's a daunting amount of information. Just out of curiosity, because it came up in one from the community in our budget meeting back in January. I'm assuming, obviously, it would have been totally impossible to do this without computers. But is there also, in conjunction with the computers, is there an AI component that figures into some of this data modeling?
At this point, I don't believe so. But absolutely, the whole area of asset management will, once people grow appropriate tools to work at, build a set that can actually operate as a tool. I don't see why we wouldn't expect it. I mean, I'm expecting over the next several decades that we'll have a number of changes, whether it's AI, robotics, different kinds of materials, new work processes, new things that could go in the ground, that while we can't put them in as a positive into our models now because there's no proof that the benefit will be there, I do personally believe that in time we will see some of those benefits flow into these models.
Councillor D'Andrade? No. You're moving the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any discussion on this recommendation? Any further discussion? All those in favor? The motion carries. So I think we've completed that item, and thank you to the representatives from Waterworth for your presentation and joining us today. Councillor Kroll. Okay, yeah, okay. Do we have a, yeah, we have an item that's in that department a bit later, so maybe we'll wait until then. But let's go to 3.2 right now.
Thank you, Waterworth, you are free.
Thanks, everybody.
So this is the report that you mentioned earlier, William, I think, of relating this to taxation as well. So I'll go over to you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to go through this report and the attachments. And if there are questions, they could be answered at that point, as long as I have the option, if I think it's better to take up that question later on in the presentation, because we're going to cover that. I would ask to wait. And on that note, I'll get going.
To wait until the end?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Page 9 of 83 of the agenda package is where the report starts. And the report with this attachment presents draft operating and capital project lists for the period 2026 through 2030 for the committee's consideration. And I would like to highlight that as part of this 26 budget process, council and staff are confirming or reconfirming projects for 2026. We're scoping out the most likely projects to occur for the 5-year financial plan 2026 to 2030. And we're flagging major items that staff will be following up that may end up in a financial plan sooner than later or might not be there for 10 years, but a lot of preliminary work has to be done. These project lists reflect our known regulatory requirements that we need to comply with, the asset condition priorities that we know of, our available funding sources, and flags any identified grant opportunities. The lists have been pruned back a lot, not from a staff perspective of let's prune the projects down, but more from the result of much more focus on what needs to be done. So in prior years, we did have a project backlog, yes, but we also had a lot of projects that didn't necessarily have to be done, or we've since learned reasons why it's good that we didn't do them, because there's a better way to go at things. So the first attachment up, attachment A, is the 2026 utilities operating projects. And the items I wish to share with you were, first of all, for the water utility that has no projects, is this reflects an effort to take projects that were once, from a staff perspective, considered a standalone project to flag that, no, that's part of base operating activities. So whether it's checking zones for leakage, or it's doing a rolling every year condition assessment of a well, that kind of work, that's an operating budget work, albeit it might be performed by engineers and consultants with staff. So no need, to call out any projects. 26 water. Sewer, turning just in the middle of that sheet. We do have upgrades to maximize the processing capacity of the existing plant, work on that. And a revised engineering consulting approach has been developed. And that's going to come up later today. That engineering consulting process will be paid from the sewer's operating reserve account. So we have those funds in hand. There is one item that wasn't mentioned specifically in the report, but it is important that council be aware of it. So GLHA has a wharf sanitary system, and it really needs some assistance at this time. And the first work that needs to be done is, well, what should the system be? what should go in there? And from that point, then we'll know who we could ask for grant funding or how otherwise it should be paid for. But at this point, the town is the sole member of GLHA, and the town has the staff and consulting and contracting resources to get this sorted out pretty quickly. And of course, GLHA doesn't, because, I mean, they're not actually in the business of running sewer systems. And okay. And then the final part of attachment A touches on the drainage utility operating project, and in this case, it is the third year, the last part of completing the setup of a drainage utility. And the focus in 2026 was to be consultation with the council and community on how to best go about implementing a frontage tax to make sure it's as equitable as possible. And those are the 26 operating projects. Next up, attachment B is the 26 utilities capital projects. Now, there's more going on here. So in water, we have $2.2 million in total cost of projects, all reserve funded, of which Skyline water main replacement is the largest at 1.7. And when we say reserve funded with Skyline, we just mean that the money from the new debt that wasn't spent in 25 is parked in the reserve at the end of 25 and then pulled out to carry on and complete the job in 2026. On the attachment B, just to flag, up under aquifer wells near the top, there's a couple of oranges. So at one point, the idea was to go full-on rehabilitating well number 3. And the more our infrastructure team has looked at that, the more they're identifying issues that have slowed down that process while they sort out what's the best thing to do, not only for that well, but more importantly for the water system as a whole, because there are a number of well options to consider. And 350,000, which was planned a couple of years ago, it is a lot of money. Down under pumping distribution, infrastructure over the last couple of years has gradually built up a combination of consultant and staff to sort out water main, water line replacements. So of course you have to go in and investigate, then you have to do detailed design, then you have to have a tender package, and then you have to make sure you have the money, and then finally you get to do the work. So one of the items that's showing up now, and I just flagged here, is it's not always the consultants and engineers and our top infrastructure people. It can also be the people in the utilities out in the field helping get things sorted out. So our crew will be visiting, doing a water line replacement this year, a small one at Donidas Lane, which the group there has realized can't wait. Yes, it's a small project of 50,000, but it's something that needs to be done. Moving to sewer, capital projects 2026. Much smaller amounts of money involved, only $0.4 million, all reserve funded. And a new collection system rehabilitation program is launched. And you'll see that as the first project under collection for sewer utility. So there's a quotation. Everything is organized to spend $175,000 on some of our collection system. And the team has gotten themselves organized, like in water, to sort out ahead of time as fast as you need to be organized so that we can keep going to those worst places. And that includes sorting out each year as the backlog items come up out of those models. There's a list of those items to go and do the condition assessments to find out, are we going to be lucky and something's going to last a lot longer? Or is it, yes, truly something that arrangements have to be made to get on to replace it? So it's that kind of a program, and it reflects an advance in the town's capacity to, you know, not only do the theory of asset management, but do the implementation side. Drainage utility, we have the big watershed creek restoration drainage improvements project. It may, in fact, they had a great year in 2025, and they may be able to finish it in 2026. So basically all of the remaining grant money funds that, and it's just lined up in the hope that we'll be able to finish it in 26. And the last orange on that page, drainage collection system rehabilitation program. So the town is now concentrated on getting more funding into drainage. And I just wanted to flag this, that although the amount of money is very small, it's a reflection of use of the new parcel tax money, that it has a use, it's needed right away. We'll already be spending 90,000 of it in 2026. And those are the items I wanted to flag for you on attachment B. So we've gone through 2026 operating and capital projects. Next one up is operating projects for the 5-year period. So they are right mixed in to, we'll be heading to attachment C. Oh, went by it. It's page 20 of the 83 pages in the agenda. At the bottom of that page, more to the bottom. Stop. There we are, listed operating projects. So 27-28, infrastructure feels it's time to update the water master plan those should be updated approximately every 10 years. I think the town will be over, but it's felt that's a good time to do that. And then in 2027, there's a proposal to drill 3 new wells, aquifer monitoring wells, to increase data collection in I don't know all the detail, but a specific area where we don't have as much data as we should have. And that would address that. And lower down on that sheet, you can see a green line there. And that just shows that, well, and where's this being paid from? This is being paid from the Water Operating Reserve account. Now, of course, with some of these things, we're always looking out for grants. And by knowing where we're going with projects, we might luck out and find a grant that will pay for that water master plan. But the point is, if we don't, we have the money to do it. And that's the best time to do it. And again, with these listed operating projects, we're focused on a few items that only show up occasionally. They're generally expensive when they do. And otherwise, our expectation is that staff should, within their operating base budget, find the money to pay for things that grants won't. Switching to sewer, that's page 24 of the 83-page budget package. Again, down in the listed operating projects, the bottom of that page. The future operating projects lined up are as follows. So, well, I guess I'll just read through them. They're all in the green on the left. So we have the wastewater treatment facility upgrades expansion study that we've touched on, and that's the report coming later to council for $260,000 in 2026. We have GLHA down there at the bottom. Now, over in 27 and 28, we have, after all this upgrades expansion study work is done in 26, there will be the need to go and do some serious condition assessments to prove up some assumptions about what can be upgraded at the plant in order to open up its existing capacity for use. So that work is estimated at this time to cost about $250,000. And at the point in time that the town has finished this upgrade expansion study work on the plant and finished detailed design work on a new sewer outfall, it will then be in the position, it will have the information in hand and will be required to update its BC municipal sewer registration, which is a $200,000 job. One hopes not to have to upgrade that very often. And again, right down at the bottom with the figures 260, 200, 250 there, it's just reflecting that the funding is there through the operating reserve account of the sewer to pay for that. So it's organized. And again, you never know, there might be some grants that come up that would help us with a couple of these. Even one would be great. Moving to drainage on the same topic, listed operating projects, which is page 28 of 83 in the package. There's actually not a lot to do there. We've already touched on 26, finishing up the utility study. Proposed for 28, dredging probably well overdue at that point. Its White Tower has old drainage ponds, and unlike the new drainage pond, these ones you have to go there periodically and dig out the bottom. And yes, you do have to get a permit to do that. You can't just go up and do it whenever you wish. Also, the master plan is ready for a 10-year or so update out in 2030. And again, most of this funded from the drainage utilities operating reserve account. Now turning to 5-year capital projects, same process. Now there's a lot more detail on these sheets, starting with attachment F, page 31 of 83 of the budget. So we're in water. The main event for 26 there, water main completion for Skyline. The second item of note is the School Road Reservoir seismic work. So we're grant dependent, and we expect to hear sometime in the second quarter of 26 whether BC will award that grant. We remain really hopeful on that one. That work that announcement would then trigger $150,000 or up to of final detailed design work there. And then we would spend the money, the grant money would be 100% in 2027. The only other thing, I skipped over something, I'll come back to it. That big orange block at the bottom reflects asset management planning in action, if I might put it that way. So we have waterline replacements, Adonidas, and then Marine Crescent. Those things have been identified for 26 and 27. And then there is some condition assessment work to do and some engineering to do. So we can only say right now that Bluff and McCall look like places we might be going in 27 and 29 to do some pretty significant work. But there's definitely some asset management coordination work that also has to be done along with condition assessment before we would be in a position to say that those are the ones. But from a council, community perspective, given that we do have some backlogs, every couple of years there should be a major project there, because if there isn't, it means the backlog isn't getting cleared up. Okay, the last thing I wanted to mention, and it's just a reflection of the need for capital. If you look up in the top section of the sheet where it says on the left-hand side, lots and lots of lines, water capital reserve, and the total of that running along the bottom, it's grants are available when they are, but for the kind of replacement work we're doing, it's critical to have the water capital reserve there, and that's why so much money is coming out of the reserve. The community's putting it in, and the town is doing the work to spend it. Sewer. This is attachment G, page 33 of the 83-page package. A couple of highlights there. So down in the lower section, there's three big items of note. The first one is the second line in green there, or sorry, the first line in green, the Bluff foreshore collection replacement. So this one is grant dependent. We anticipate getting or hearing a decision on that in the third quarter of 2026. We felt we made a strong application. We know there's a lot of demand for that funding, so that's Canada, the Strategic Priorities Fund, administered through UBCM. But we're hopeful that one will be awarded, and then we would start work on detailed design later in the year, and then you can see the figures mounting up to the major work happening in 2028. Down at the bottom there in the discharge part of the types of projects you can see for sewer is the outfall replacement. And that's another one. We have received an update on the CHIF. So if you go up to the top, you'll see a little blue box that says quarter 126. So we have received a communication that essentially says, sorry, we've allocated all the CHIF money and you're not one of them. However, maybe good news for you, in our 2025 Canada budget, in the Building Canada Stronger Fund, the BCSF, will shortly be alive, and we're forwarding the entire list of projects that we thought, even though they weren't chosen then, were like bona fide projects, because I mean, they spend all the time screening all the work we sent them. They've clearly indicated that the town's project there has gone there, and then they've been careful not to make any promise. But the next expectation then is the third quarter of '26. We might get a follow-up from them. So yeah, it's hard to say how that's going to work out. I should indicate, though, that project was 50% funded, and it's a very big project, sort of in the 8 million plus range. And all of the rest of that money was going to be paid with the sewer capital reserve. So these upgrade expansion thinking and the revised way of going about the engineering has already highlighted that, well, maybe since we have those millions available, we have the opportunity to look at doing land-based work that might increase the expansion of our existing plant with our existing outfall pipe. And so even if this doesn't work out the way it was originally planned, it may yet still work out in the town's favor. And then the last item I wanted to flag was down in the bottom under treatment. So we're going to have this upgrades expansion implementation plan that's going to flow out of this, sorry, no pun intended, the 260,000 of work. There's going to be some things there to implement. And probably not earlier than 2030. So in this proposal for the next 5-year financial plan, as a placeholder, 2 million is showing as new debt. But we have time before we get there to organize things. And certainly we would think some of the kinds of things they're identifying there where they involve upgrades and expansions that might mean more capacity for more housing and so on. Those are things that could be eligible for senior government grants. Again, because they want to help on things that they're prioritizing that are brand new expansions or upgrades, and they are doing their very best not to help with any reinvestment of existing. That's that for that one. Drainage, capital projects. Other than the Catnap watershed and creek restoration efforts, there's no big projects on here, but it is just reflecting over 5 years the implementation of asset management and the implementation of the spending of the new parcel tax. So this was page 35 of 83 of the agenda. And if you look under drainage capital reserve, you just see the amounts currently proposed to be spent rolling out there, and it's slowly growing, 330,000 in 2029. But we were targeting, or our model tells us if we could average everything out perfectly, we'd be spending at the $450,000 level. Some of that might be saving for the future. I don't have anything else on that, and I'm almost at the end, but it's time to just touch on a few points back in the report itself, and then one more look at some numbers in here which pertain to the question I was asked earlier. Page 3 of 5 of the report, which is page 11 of 83 in the budget package. Just read a couple of items here. There is this is to do with public engagement and communication and staff's perspective. There is an understanding developing in the community that utility increases are primarily on account of capital, not operating expenses. The need to pay for replacing the town's existing assets that are not eligible for senior government grants. At the recent Gibsons Community Dialogue 2026 budget priorities, the members of the community there advised that high annual increases cannot be sustained by the community indefinitely. So I think in the context of utilities, once annual capital funding levels are achieved, increases, and this is what the community expects, should return to general inflation levels. So for them, 8-10% is high. There better be a good reason for it. It better not be forever. And then when it's done, In their eyes, inflation is 2 or 3% these days.
In our eyes. Yeah,
sorry.
I mean, council said that, we've said that all year, or all term, so I just want to make sure we are putting that out to the community. We're representing the community.
I'm going to show you that that's the case now, but it does require going back into some of these attachments. One moment, please. So, looking to head to page 19 of the 83-page package. And up at the top right, there's a big, long yellow box with some writing in it. It reads, revenue required equals 1.5 million, this is the water utility, 1.5 million for operations, 600,000 to pay existing water debt, and $1.3 million capital for reinvestment, for a total of $3.4 million. And if you look lower down on the right there, you'll see in orange, total revenues out in 2030, $3.4 million. And then if you go back up to the top, where you see these are percentage increases. So in 26 and 27, the town already has planned increases of 10 for those years. And then the proposed increases here are those that would be needed to get to that $3.4 million. So for water, another 10% in 28, and then there's the light at the end of the tunnel, 29 and 2030, 2%. So if we could, so that's the first part of the answer, but just to look at the proof, if we go to page 20 of 83, down in the middle there, it says in orange, base budget expenditures. That's page 20 of 83. And this is the operating budget figure for budget 26 is 1,412,522. And then down the bottom, I've got the changes from budget year to year. So actually, you can see in 26, we're shrinking the operating budget 4%. And then we are escalating it. So that's the result of all these line item figures above that you need to run the operations. 27 is at 2, 28 is at 2, 29 is at 1, and 2030 is at 1. So when we're speaking to the community at large, to council, the operating budget is not what we're demanding a lot of money for. So one more step on looking at all of this for water is page 22 of 83. And of 22 of 83, right in the middle, there's Water Capital Reserve Fund. And in a very nice clay shade, to reserve, right out there in 2030, we're looking to target from those Waterworth models, $1.3 million capital coming in each year. And you can see in 2029, there's 1.264, and in 2030, we've made it. We've gone over a little bit. So that's just to show, okay, if you are increasing the rates as we saw in the beginning there, and you're saying that you're breaking even more or less on your operating budget, is that money for sure flowing through where it's supposed to go? And the answer is yes, when we work things for another 5 years. Now I'd like to show you the same thing again for sewer. So page 23 of 83. 23 of 83, in the top right-hand side, Again, the big yellow box. Revenue required equals $2 million for operations, $400,000 for sewer debt, $1.5 million for capital reinvestment. So we have a total revenue need of $3.9 million. And down a little bit below in 2030, we are pretty close. We've got $3.8 million. The sewer utility is the one that has the biggest demand for money because, of course, we have a plant. In the water system, we are lucky enough not to require a plant, so it demands less. And if you look up top for C, the planned increases in the most recent financial plan had 10% through 2029, and we would need another 10 in 2030. But starting in 2031, it wouldn't be a perfect drop down to 2 or 3%, but it would be significantly lower. Moving to page 24 of 83, base budget expenditures. You'll note I've used the word draft in a lot of places. You'll see that I've made a drafting error, but I can provide the information. So in the operating budget for sewer, we will shrink the budget 1% in 26, or it's proposed. Then in 27, the increase would be 2%, in 2028, 2%, 2029, 1%, 2030, 1%. Again, I forgot to spread the calculation across the cells there. When this is final at the next meeting that this comes to council, after the committee review, it'll be corrected. But the takeaway message there is it's not the operating budget for sewer that's demanding money. And then finally, looking at, for sewer, looking at page 26 of 83, I just want to show that the target money has ended up where it's supposed to go. So in the middle of that page 26 of 83, Sewer Capital Reserve Fund, and again, the clay-like color. If you look over in 2030, there is $1,477,000, and our target through the Waterworth model is 1.5. Lastly, the drainage utility, a little more complicated. It's more complicated just because we're transitioning the revenue mix, but I'll touch on that as simply as I can. So page 27 of 83, the revenue required is 700,000 minimum for operations. There is no drainage debt, and at least 400,000 for capital. So the target for revenues is at least $1.1 million. And looking down in the middle there, year 2030, under the proposed changes for raising and paying the revenues, we would end up with $1,160,000. So we get to the right point. Now, going back up to the top is a little more complicated to follow, but essentially, under current budget 2026, that $552,000, so it's the clay color box, that's being raised through municipal taxes. The current system we're doing, the system that is not set up to handle a utility amongst all its other things, hence council's decision that, okay, let's move it over like many other local governments have. And then the only change beyond a very significant operating expenditure increase for 26 there is the establishment of a new parcel tax to start raising money for reinvestment of capital. In 2027, with the implementation of a frontage tax, there's no municipal tax anymore. So we give the payers all of that money back. And then we get it back. Down below in the middle, you'll see $607,670 clay color under 2027 drainage frontage charges, and there we've now flipped over to a system in 2027 where there's a parcel tax and a frontage charge. that's how this would look in practice. Since council, in principle, has gone ahead with the creation of a drainage utility and the creation of a parcel tax, the town still has to prepare a 5-year financial plan, and it prepares it based on its best understanding of what it's going to do and what those costs are. So I realized pretty soon when I was doing this that, oh, we actually had to spell it out as best we can now. And of course, the financial plan won't be adopted until mid to late March, so there's quite a bit of time yet for any reflections council may have on this. Wrapping up drainage, page 28 of 83. And this reflects how drainage has such a need for more money, really. And I'm sorry, again, I didn't carry the formula across all the cells in my draft, but I do have them here for you. So base budget expenditures, ignore the 13% in 2026, but in 2027 would be 8%, 28, 10%. And I'll just stop there for a moment. And why would that be? Well, the amount of operating activities, the operating service level has been going up a lot. Once we get out to the end of 2028, that'll probably establish the new service levels, which aren't so much optional, as council has noted. It's about resiliency and it's about handling water as it comes out of the sky. 2029, though, things start looking a lot better, 3%. So that need to escalate the operating budget basically is substantially over, and 3% again in 2030. So again, for council and community, even with this drainage utility transitioning to a better funded status, still longer term, once we get this change done, it's not the operating budget that's demanding the money, it's the capital budget. And on page 29 of 83, we see the growth of the frontage tax, and we achieved the target. So Drainage Capital Reserve Fund, second line, clay color, right over on the right-hand side, 2030, $458,000 in hand, and our target right now is actually $450,000. So again, we'll get at least where all the planning and modeling says the town is supposed to get to. And that, Councilor D'Andrade, I hope that's answered your question. No? Because that whole section with the rates up, the way I understood the question was, so we put all of this money in, what does that mean in terms of rates? How does that work? And we have put all the demands for money in those big yellow boxes, and then we've sorted out operating needs, capital needs with the proof behind them, and out comes these proposed rates at the top.
Thank you. I fully appreciate everything you just, this long explanation it's awesome, because we really, obviously in previous meetings, we understood what was coming, but you broke down. My question was more, okay, when we put, because it's 10% on, regarding, for example, the water, but I was like, how much the tree drainage water would translate into property tax, the percentage? It's going to be 3%, 4%, or?
Thank you very much for asking that. So we're at the committee of the whole review level. Assuming the committee decides to refer this as is or a modified forward, staff will take it away, and in the next report I write that will come back to council, in there I will scope out typical home, typical business with these different items so we could see what it means in terms of dollars.
Thank you. This is such an incredible amount of depth of work and accuracy of forecasting. A simple question, going back to the drainage utility budget, when we're looking at the drainage parcel tax and the frontage charges, seeing the first budget line reflected in 2027 as the 607,000, I would have thought that there would have been some financial indicator in 2026. Is that because that quarterly is going to fall into 2027? I just thought there would have been we would have seen something in the 2026 current budget line. What am I missing?
Sorry, Counselor, I'm not sure whether I'm on the very first page of the drainage budget or,
I think so, yeah. Right now it's shown up here.
Yeah.
And then it comes down here. I think that's what she's referring to.
so we're at page 27 of 83. Sorry, 27 of 83. And so in 2026, we're still on municipal taxes doing their best to fund drainage, so we have 552,000 there. But at this point, there's no frontage charge. And then lower down there, we have 280,000 for parcel tax, giving us, unfortunately here, drafting error, it doesn't add the 552 plus the 280, but that in total would be our money to run drainage in 2026. And then in 27, just going down into the middle section there, finally, we have the parcel taxes growing another year at 10%, so it's up to 308,000. And now we have the frontage charge of 607, and that adds properly together, and now we have 916,000. Does that help answer the question? Because in 2026, we had 552 and 280, so 752, 830 odd.
Gets carried over. Is that difference?
I carry over. Carry over. Well, there aren't, other than some of the parcel tax money, there's no money being carried forward. In 26, drainage will get run with municipal taxes and a parcel tax, and we'll spend all of that, and we'll send the unspent capital to reserve.
Okay.
And then in 2027, there won't be any property tax, but there will be a frontage tax along with a parcel tax. And again, we'll spend all of that, and anything that's not spent on capital will end up in reserve.
Reserves. Got it. Okay. Thank you for that explanation. Yeah, got it.
Wow, I'm up to 3 drafting errors already.
I do just want, I remember the point about GLHA, and we kind of exchanged some quizzical looks up here because I don't think the fact that we are a sole member in the governance of GLHA should have anything to do with infrastructure costs. That's just, I want to say that on behalf of council, especially in all the work we've been doing with the GLHA and reconsidering their constitution and stuff. That work is something that the GLHA has their own budget, and we approve their budget. We appoint their members, they're accountable to us, but they're not a department of the town. So I think we need to kind of figure out a better rationale for any kind of, or more, we need a better rationale for understanding why we might be funding their infrastructure.
I do have one.
Okay.
That I didn't mention. Apologies for that. So the thinking from the staff side is that there is a real issue on the sewer, and we have the capacity to do it, but it's not necessarily to go and do it for free. It would be, you're now essentially looking to the town for service in this regard, so we'll have to sort out how you can pay for it. There are good reasons for the town to make sure that there is a system that goes in that's going to look after all commercial needs. It could possibly accommodate passenger ferry needs. And in that case, the town's expectation would be, and the financial modeling work would be, GLHA, you have the ability to charge, quite rightly, for this kind of service. And since you didn't bear the cost and you're not going to look after it probably going forward, that money would have to be transferred over to the town, because in the end, we want to be cost neutral on this, and we certainly don't want to be subsidizing anything commercial. And that is as much as I know, Mayor White.
Gail?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just add a little bit to that. So at the moment, there's a sewer connection serving the property per se, and that collects what comes from the existing buildings. Then there's a sandy connection for boats, but that's currently sort of somewhat out of order or not working properly. There's a third issue there, which is the sea level rise, particularly in the last few king tides, has really shown the limitations on the existing setup. And we are seeing a fair amount of saltwater intrusion, for example. So that sort of creates the conditions for us to engage, and we have been engaging with them. Looking at that, we also see potential to address the situation now, if nothing else. But there's opportunity to also create conditions for the future. There's a lot of boats. There's no disposal options between Vancouver and Pender Harbor. So it really leaves a large area without service. And even within Howe Sound, we received from time to time inquiries about availability of whether it's larger ships and we have the capacity. And if we could work together to have an investment that serves the current users, but it leaves us better protected for make it easier for people to dispose and give us capacity to receive future growth as well. So I think it will be a good investment. That's what we propose. Who pays for all of that? That's still to be determined. But we've started that conversation just out of risk management, if nothing else.
Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. It certainly makes sense if at the end of the day, we're going to have to deal with whatever's coming from there. But is the current asset for collection on the government wharf and the pumping station, is that an asset of the GLHA or is it an asset of DFO?
I'm not certain of that. Who owns what, which, for our perspective, it's somewhat immaterial who owns it between the two of them. We're happy to work with either one on that.
I don't have the document with me to be absolutely certain, but did do some work with GLHA because we look after the arrangements for the property insurance there, and I'm sure on that updated asset management listing under GLHA assets, instead of everything down there is clearly one or the other. It's DFOs or it's GLHAs. I'm pretty sure the waste system there was on GLHA.
Questions? Yeah, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I don't want to jump ahead, but when we're looking at I tried to find it, and I know it was at one of the front pages with respect to the wastewater evaluation. What was the scope price that was put in? We've got that coming up in the staff report. What figure was? What figure was?
260,000.
That was the 260 reflective.
A couple of years ago, it was scoped at 200,000. And my understanding is 260,000 will end up with a much better process and much better information and things we can act on in short order to get benefits out of the plant we already have.
And it's showing, yeah.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council. Councillor DeAndrade is moving the recommendation and seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you for this thorough work and report. And moving to a planning item on 3.3. This item is 528 Marine Drive, DVP and encroachment agreement, and I'll look to our planning table to introduce it.
This is the DVP for 528 Marine Drive. Council may recall this application for a duplex at 528 Marine Drive. This image is the duplex as seen from Marine Drive looking towards the ocean. This variance is being brought forward now as the retaining walls within the setback weren't previously shown. This stretch of Marine Drive contains some of the steepest vertical grades within the town. At 528 Marine Drive, the site elevation drops from approximately 11 meters geodetic to 4 meters geodetic over a horizontal distance of roughly 10 meters, providing a difficult 70% slope to work within. To build within the site, stepped retaining walls are needed, which would be located within the setbacks. The applicant is requesting a variance to the siting for stepped retaining walls up to 3 meters in height, projecting above grade within the setback. This is the site plan of the proposed duplex. The green shows retaining walls within the setback. This is the subject of this DVP application, and the pink is the encroachment areas, which will be addressed in a future report from the Director of Infrastructure Services. To accommodate on-site parking, the applicant must raise the existing grade at the roadside corner of the property from approximately 8.43 meters to 11.16 meters geodetic to allow for the construction of a reasonably level driveway. The variance seeks to mitigate the extent of this grade increase by incorporating shorter tiered retaining walls and stair access within the side yard setbacks, rather than a single tall retaining structure. The challenging grade conditions are further compounded by existing development on the site, including tall retaining walls located on both private and public property. The images to the right show the stepped retaining walls on the sides of the building. They're also in the attachment with the drawings. This slide goes over Council Policy 3.9. One of the criteria is impact on neighboring properties. The response has been minor. There's significant grade change. The building may appear tall as a large sidewall will be exposed, but the stepped retaining walls and landscaping are proposed to reduce the perceived scale of the building. The demonstrated need for the variance is required to allow for the construction of a reasonably level driveway and for the on-site parking. 3-meter grade increase required to accommodate the parking as well. The intent of the bylaw is the wall height to minimize large walls within the setbacks, and the variance does not compromise the intent since the property is so steep and development would replace larger existing walls while reducing the wall height. There's no precedent set because it's similar retaining walls exist on nearby properties. There's no change in use or density, as well as the variance supports on-site parking and building above a flood construction level. From neighbor feedback, we received 3 submissions, 1 in support of the variance and 2 opposed to the variance. And the recommendations, option 1, approve the DVP request that the issuance of DVP 2025-01 to construct retaining walls over 1.2 meters within the side yard setbacks be authorized. Option 2 is deny the DVP request. that DBP 2025-01 to construct retaining walls over 1.2 meters within the side yard setbacks be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? We do have an opportunity for people to be heard on these kinds of variances, so we could ask for that first too, before, or if there are any questions. Okay. Yeah, I'll just ask if anyone in the audience would like to address council on this report and variance request. Ask it again. Okay. Seeing none, I'll go back to council. I mean, we do have written input that's come in as well that is in our package. Councillor D'Andrade.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the report. I mean, my understanding is that there is a need for that, and this will decrease the impacts in the wall. But I had a little bit difficult understanding because the first design we had, it's quite colored with the landscape, and this is just gray, and it seems to me that there's more concrete. So my first question was regarding lot coverage. Is there a difference in lot coverage with this new approach? Is it the same? So.
Through the mayor, everything's the same. The landscaping's the same. Lot coverage is the same. It's just the elevation of the retaining wall that they're tiering instead of the one large retaining wall.
Okay, Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. I don't know if there's any other questions from other members of council, but you know, I think we all recognize that this has been a hugely difficult site for anyone to build anything on, with immense challenges. And, you know, as things change with building codes and one thing and another, and sea level rise and all these things that are being thrown in the path of a potential builder, I would like to move the motion that we approve this request. You know, I think we've had 3 or 4 iterations of potential projects on this site, and you know, I think having a structure there which is safe as opposed to, you know, what's currently there would be a huge benefit to the community and sort of set a standard. So I would like to move option 1 that we approve the development permit request.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kroll. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thompson. I think you provided your rationale. Yeah, I'll add that, yeah, just looking back at this development proposal, because it's so hard to build there was kind of a suite of variances we had to apply in the first, or we had to approve in the first place, because otherwise it's just, I think it was impossible to construct, especially under the former zoning bylaw. So, and it's not that surprising that there might have been one, that once they got going, there was another one has been needed here. And I feel like if that had been part of the package in the first place, we would have accepted it, as well as the necessary variances that were needed to construct. So I feel like we need to kind of continue to honor that decision. Oh, and I forgot, I saw the Director of Infrastructure Services here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on that same note, the planner referenced the upcoming report that would come from the director on the encroachment agreement, and just to say that approving the variance will kind of implicitly approve the encroachment. So just wanted council to be aware of that it would be just due to the topography impossible to have the variance without it encroaching to match the grade at Marine Drive.
Okay, Councillor D'Andrade.
Thank you. This regards drainage, and sorry for my ignorance, but I feel concerned. I'm aware of certain areas that big houses were built and then the drainage ended up impacting neighbors or down the line. So this is right in front of the ocean. So how this water will be collected is going to be running underneath, and how the neighbors will be considering this. Because when I look at this picture, it seems a lot of concrete, right? And where's the drainage going?
Thank you. Through the mayor, so there is a drainage connection at the, I believe it's at the northeast corner, sorry, northeast, yeah. So the waterfront side on the Armours Beach side of the property, that's probably easier. That would take all of the drainage, so the perimeter drain, roof drain from that property and tie into an existing storm main that then discharges into, effectively onto the beach. And that's typical, so it'll go on, there's an existing pipe going underneath the seawalk, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor, so let's vote on it. All those in favor? The motion carries. And that closes that one up. So now we're on to 3.4, Director of Infrastructure Services. And just as an item in the infrastructure department, I'd like to ask if we have a new manager present with us today, and I'd like to ask if the director could, or CAO could provide an introduction to council and the community.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd be happy to introduce, I won't make him come to the mic if he doesn't want to, but maybe he could stand up so council can see at least Michael Wall. He's in his second day and kind of getting his feet wet today with all the things operational. He's our new operating superintendent, so he'll be in charge of the kind of day-to-day, month-to-month annual cycle of operating and maintenance for public works, parks, and at the wastewater treatment plant, as well as the water utility. We're all very excited to welcome him aboard. He's got lots of experience from time up at the Cadet Regional District in managing, doing asset management and project management, as well as managing operations there. So he's got lots of experience and knowledge, and he's already been a great fit into the team. So we're super happy to welcome him on board.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. Thank you. Welcome, Michael. Now we'll move on to the item here, which I don't think Michael's had a chance to be directly involved in yet. He's only been here 2 days, but I assume our director will be presenting this, which is the proposed stormwater regulation bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just provide a bit of a brief introduction, kind of just focusing on the purpose, kind of and the intent of the bylaw. The report I followed, kind of a similar example for a new bylaw that our bylaw enforcement officer introduced, so hopefully it was fairly easy to follow. The intent of the new stormwater regulation bylaw is to fill a bit of a regulatory gap that we have at the town. We've got stormwater management regulation within bylaw 1175, which is the subdivision servicing and development servicing standards bylaw. But in the first page of that bylaw, it basically states that this applies to any new build, whether it be a subdivision or a new construction. What we don't have is anything that regulates existing conditions. So properties that might have drainage issues that are causing problems to either the town by having uncontrolled runoff onto the street, which might freeze, or just might cause washout of some other, gravel washing out onto the road or something like that, which causes ongoing maintenance issues, as well as drainage quality concerns, which can, end up being somebody just painting in their front yard and then dumping something into the ditch, and that ends up in a creek, and that ends up in the marine environment. So the intent is to create something that's specific to just stormwater regulation, and it does not sit within the development servicing standards bylaw. I think the bylaw itself, the structure of it's fairly, I would hope, straightforward to understand. Kind of talks about drainage control, defines illegal discharges. There's parameters for how drainage connection systems have to work. The one thing that I should key into here, which I think could be a focus of the conversation, it introduces the requirement or the proposed requirement for a stormwater rehabilitation unit, which would be specific to certain commercial entities which, for one reason or another, would have a higher likelihood of drainage stormwater quality issues. That could be an automotive repair shop, a boat builder. We've got a list that's provided within the proposed bylaw, various classifications, and it's to provide a kind of a second level of, or a primary level of separation of those contaminants before it gets into the town's drainage system. Ultimately, we're responsible for the quality of what we're discharging. There aren't reporting requirements similar as there are within the sanitary, where we have very strict reporting requirements to both the federal and provincial governments. But if there are contamination issues that get identified, and if it's coming from the town's drainage system, we do have some level of responsibility for that. So by requiring the rehabilitation unit, that would provide a level of separation, level of treatment that would put us into a better position of having some quality control over what we're receiving from private property in terms of drainage. It wouldn't eliminate possibilities of stuff happening kind of out in the public, but at least it would capture some of the contaminants coming from private property. There's no specific thing. It's not like there's a brochure of what a rehabilitation unit would be. It's something that would get engineered. It could be a settling pond. Very likely, it would most likely, I would imagine, be a manhole with some grit separation in it. And it would go within the existing drainage connection for some of the existing properties. And as part of new builds, it would be something that we'd be looking for as part of our plan review. There's some options around that. It's certainly, there's an impact that this would impose on private business. It proposes a 3-year grace period to allow businesses to implement such a unit. Certainly, if council's got concerns around the impact of businesses, we could look into trying to get a bit of more of a sense of cost and what that might look like, just for information. We could also entertain extending the grace period, so from 3 years to 5 years. Another option could be to eliminate that requirement initially and consider that as a future amendment to the bylaw. So I just wanted to kind of float that out there, because that's most of this should be, I would hope the public would be pretty receptive of the fact that, yeah, okay, we can't necessarily just discharge water onto the sidewalk without there being some repercussions. That has the most potential impact on a few select properties in town. I think at this point, unless you would like me to dive into some specifics in the bylaw, I tried to touch on that in the report to give you a bit of a guideline through that. So I'll just look to questions from the committee now and can provide some more context as necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White, and thank you, Director, for this proposed bylaw, because I think it's, we're all aware of trying to protect the environment. Councillor D'Andretti, just in the previous item, was concerned with permeability and buildings and where the water ends up. And I notice on the list of properties on page 57, two things that sort of jumped out of that list that aren't there are malls and vehicle impound lots. I don't know whether that would be captured under automotive garage or service stations, but do we need to be that specific for things like wrecking yards?
Through the mayor, I appreciate that input. I got the list of business classifications. This is out of the business licensing classification, so I'd have to refer that to bylaw to see if the impound lot, for example, if that's covered by one of these other CATIG classifications or whether that's its own specific one. So that would be a great one to add if it's not captured by one of these existing classifications.
Just in follow-up to that, there have been occasions where, we get a rainy day and you go to like the Sunnycrest Mall and you just see an oil slick on the parking lot, that ultimately is ending up in our stormwater management collection system. So that was one of the reasons I flagged that. And, quite often you see commercial businesses hosing out dumpsters. Where's that going? So it was, one of the reasons that I wanted to flag that, because, I think everyone cares about the protection of our environment.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I've got a note here for that. I think one thing we could consider is the use of the mall isn't necessarily, or the business doesn't necessarily drive that, but it's the volume of vehicles. So we could potentially look at businesses that have certain coverage, like certain number of parking stalls on a property or certain density of parking as potentially being a trigger as well. So that's something we'd have to consider how we might capture that in. It could get a bit complicated, but the intention is it's valid.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was quite pleased to see this report, because this is an important issue, and it's an issue that usually it's not evident. I mean, we're still small, but when I was working in Vancouver, I've done studies with that, and it's huge, and the cumulative effect, that could be serious impact. And even Vancouver spent millions and millions of dollars just cleaning the harbor and cleaning everything. So I would like this to be implemented, but obviously understanding that commercial properties can foot a big bill. So my question is there a possibility that, knowing the properties, that the town maybe come up with, do a contract with a company to get a better fee, instead of every commercial owner having to do their own bid, right? And maybe the business could be listed. And I know there's the financial complication. I wish it could come through maybe property taxes or something. But I wonder if there's a mechanism to get better rates for this business, that if this bylaw is implemented as it is, they must come up with this, whether in 3 years or 5, they have to. And in a way, cost of construction seems to be increased, so maybe it's better to do it before. But I think it will be great if there's a mechanism to get like a deal with a contractor to do multiple.
Councillor Thompson.
I understand and share what you're saying. The intention, I completely support the intention, but I'm having a hard time with addressing the complications around enforcement and direction, and what the steps would be, having it in the bylaw and then being able to, I feel like we've got a bit of a gap, and I'd just like to discuss that a little bit more.
Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. And to Councillor Thompson's point, I certainly am in total support of the bylaw. I can see that, there is going to be an impact for certain property owners. So my question is, if we give this first reading and then direct staff to do a little more of a community engagement with some of these potential property owners, which might require some refining and tweaking of the bylaw before we do, finalize things. So I'm just wondering if that might be a preferred option. Then, as it is right now, I certainly support it, but I know there needs to be probably more community engagement, and I would certainly like to give the business owners and property owners the option for a little more dialogue with this process. So I would certainly support first reading of the bylaw, followed by community engagement with respect to what is currently outlined in the bylaw. And would appreciate sort of feedback from staff with that sort of concept.
Is there feedback from staff on some of the comments that been made in the last,
Yeah, I think I'll go to, thank you, through the mayor, I'll go to Councillor Kroll's comment first. That was proposed as an option. I think the way we had proposed was that rather than referring this to council for first reading, is just at a committee, we would receive direction to do some engagement, and then based on that engagement, bring it back to council for first reading or first to third. So I think short of the first reading, given we're in committee right now, I think that's aligned with one of the proposed recommendations. It would be good to get clarification on if you're looking for general community engagement or specific targeted engagement to the affected businesses as a part of the resolution that comes out of at the time.
There are two parts of the option.
Yeah.
Option 3, that one is to inform the public generally, and one is to consult with the community of business. So I'm looking for council feedback on that. I'll go for Councillor Kroll first.
Just in follow-up, the reason I mentioned the first reading, does that not give the community council's intent that this is something we're going to proceed with, but we're giving the community the opportunity for feedback on it, as opposed to just community engagement sort of willy-nilly? That I felt it was important that the community be aware of this is something council is serious about.
Yeah, it's always a little like awkward to when the recommendations for first, second, third reading or any reading comes to committee of the whole, because we really can't do any of those bylaw readings at a committee of the whole. It's more to just say, let's proceed with it when the next council meeting. So, I mean, since we're in committee, I don't know if it makes a big difference because we can't do a first reading here anyway. If we recommend a first reading and a community consultation versus just a community consultation, I don't know if there's really a big difference procedurally in that. Yeah. Councillor Thompson.
I like how it's outlined for option 3. Consult with the community of business included in Schedule C. I think that would be a good place to land.
I just want to say, Councillor Kroll, I absolutely agree with you, though, when bylaws are coming to council, we will do that. We'll say we're going to pass first reading and then go out. But since this is committee, it's I don't know if we need to do that. And I had Councillor DeAndretti too.
I think to me is two separate things. One is to inform the community, because I don't think this bylaw is negotiable in a way that we want to consult whether we will implement or not. No, this is an important bylaw. So inform the community, but consult with the community of business, because they're the ones that will be directed, impacted. And obviously the regular non-commercial, there should be education, because many people don't even think about it, putting some stuff, they don't have awareness. So the education is an important component, but I think inform, but consult with. So if we could, that's the way I see it. It should be inform the residents, but consult with the business community.
Okay, so are you moving?
I'm moving, yes.
Option 3, both parts of option 3, because you're right, those can be two different things. Is that, yeah?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to think for the benefit of the corporate officers as well, I think the easiest would be to just strike the or, and it would just be an and that staff be directed.
Yeah, that's what we're taking that motion as.
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any further discussion? All those in favor? The motion carries. So I think that one's done. And just on incidentally on procedure, Councillor Kroll, when you brought that up, is the doing a first reading and then consulting. It reminded me of, I haven't been able to ask for quite a while about the animal control bylaw, because we did that. We put that out to the public months ago, and there must be so much feedback coming back because we still haven't seen second reading. Is that on the radar or on the horizon?
It is on the horizon.
Okay.
Yeah. So you did I believe you gave it first reading. I can't recall even, but it did go out to the public. We did receive some input, and staff have been reviewing the input, and then we're going to bring it back to council.
Okay. We haven't forgotten about that one then. And next meeting is February 17th at 1 PM for committee of the whole meeting. And of course, we do have a council meeting at 3:30 this afternoon too. So is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. All those in favor? The motion carries and the meeting is adjourned.
See what I meant though? It's like, how fast is anyone else gonna find that? Only you and I?